You escape the rat race on a Tuesday morning, not in some dramatic way. No resignation email typed with shaking hands, no viral post about choosing yourself, no new black SUV sitting in the driveway, making the neighbors wonder what changed. It happens in your kitchen at 6:17 a.m. You are standing barefoot on cold tile, wearing the same wrinkled shirt you wore last week, waiting for cheap coffee to finish dripping into a chipped mug. The refrigerator hums. The apartment is still dark. Your phone lights up on the counter. 3 deposits. One from a vending route, one from a small duplex, one from a storage unit lease you barely think about anymore. You stare at the screen longer than you need to, because for the first time in your adult life, your paycheck is not the thing keeping the lights on. And the strangest part is, nobody notices. Not your boss, not your coworkers, not your family, not the woman downstairs who still hears your old Toyota start too loudly every morning. You still drive the same car. You still pack lunch in the same plastic container. You still wear the same jacket with the loose thread near the cuff. You still walk into the same office like nothing happened. But something did happen. The system no longer owns you, and almost nobody can see that kind of escape. Your name is Mason Wells. You are 38 years old. And if someone passed you in a grocery store, they would not look twice. There is nothing shiny about you. Your shoes are worn down at the heel. Your phone screen has a crack in the corner. There is a coffee stain near the passenger seat of your car that has been there so long it feels like part of the upholstery. At 7:42, you pull into the employee parking lot behind a low brown office building outside Columbus, Ohio. It is the kind of building people drive past for years without ever wondering what happens inside. Flat roof, tinted windows, a row of tired shrubs near the entrance, a flag that snaps too loudly on windy mornings. Inside, the same conversations happen every day. Traffic, weather, groceries, gas prices, somebody's kid needing braces, somebody's rent going up again. And every other Friday, the whole office changes a little. Not enough to name, just enough to feel. Direct deposit lands. People breathe differently. Credit cards get paid down. Bills get moved around. Someone buys lunch instead of eating leftovers. Someone orders the good coffee from the place across the street. Then Monday comes, and the pressure returns. That was the rhythm. For years, that rhythm was your life. You were not broke, exactly. That was what made it hard to explain. You had a job. You had health insurance. You paid your bills. You had a retirement account you checked twice a year, mostly when the market was already making people nervous. You bought groceries at night because the store was quieter then. You made just enough money to feel responsible, and not enough money to feel free. From a distance, every month looked fine. Up close, the math always had a small bruise on it. Rent, car payment, phone bill, student loans, insurance, groceries, subscriptions, the credit card balance that never really disappeared. It just changed shape. One month it was tires. The next month it was dental work. Then a flight for a family emergency. Then a laptop that died at the worst possible time. Every purchase made sense on its own. That was the trap. Nothing looked reckless by itself, but together, all those reasonable decisions built a life your paycheck could barely carry. The trap did not announce itself. It did not arrive wearing a warning label. It began with a feeling. The feeling that you were behind. The feeling that everyone else had figured out adulthood and you were still pretending. So when your first real raise came, you did what reasonable people do. You upgraded a little. Not wildly, not stupidly. Just enough to feel like your life was moving forward. A better apartment. A newer used car. A gym membership you truly believed you would use. A few dinners out because you were tired of being careful all the time. None of it felt dangerous. That was the problem. The upgrade felt like proof. Proof that the long hours meant something. Proof that the stress had a reward. Proof that you were no longer the kid listening to your parents whisper in the kitchen after midnight. Because that is where this story really began. Not in an office, not in a spreadsheet, not in some personal finance book. It began at a kitchen table under a yellow light. Your mother kept bills in a drawer beside the stove. Your father opened envelopes with a butter knife because he said it kept the paper neat. You still remember the sound, the slice, The pause. The silence after he read whatever was inside. Nobody taught you about money. Not directly. They lowered their voices around it. They used words like fine, manageable, temporary. But the room always told the truth. Money was weather. Money was pressure. Money was the reason a normal Tuesday could become a room where nobody made eye contact. You learned early that adults could be sitting right in front of you and still be somewhere else financially. Your father would nod at dinner while your mother talked, but his eyes were inside the mortgage envelope. Your mother would laugh at something on TV, but her fingers would keep tapping the edge of a receipt. You were carrying numbers in your head before you knew what numbers were for. So when you grew up, you did not want to be rich. Not really. Not at first. You wanted to be safe. You wanted 1 month where money did not walk into the room before you did. But safety in America is complicated. It often arrives dressed as employment. A badge, a parking spot, a 401k match, a manager who says, "Good work, Mason." And for a while, you believed it. You did everything people told you to do. You showed up early. You stayed late. You learned the software. You answered emails quickly. You kept your head down. You did not complain because complaining felt expensive. And still, whenever your bank account dropped below a certain number, your chest tightened. The old kitchen table came back. The yellow light. The envelopes. The silence. That was the part nobody at work could see. Angela from accounting thought you were just quiet. Frank from claims thought you were careful with money. Your manager thought you were dependable. None of them knew you were building your entire life around one private sentence. "I never want to feel trapped like this again." The first crack in the system came from a laundromat. It sat on the corner of Meridian and 5th, between a nail salon and a check-cashing place. You started going there after the washing machine in your apartment building broke for the 3rd time. Every Thursday night, after work, you carried a blue laundry bag through the glass door and fed quarters into a machine that sounded like it had rocks inside it. That was where you met Doris. Doris was in her late 60s, gray hair, soft sneakers, a faded cardigan with pockets full of keys. She moved slowly, but nothing in that laundromat happened without her noticing. A jammed coin slot, a leaking washer, a kid spilling orange soda near the folding counter, a dryer that ran too hot. Doris saw everything. At first, you thought she worked there. Everyone did. She wiped machines, changed trash bags, refilled the soap dispenser, talked to customers by name. Then one night, a man in a work shirt came in and asked if the owner was around. Doris looked up from a dryer vent and said, "You're talking to her." The man changed his posture, just a little. And so did you. That was the first time you realized money does not always look like money. Sometimes it looks like an older woman in soft sneakers wiping lint out of a machine. Sometimes ownership wears a cardigan. Sometimes freedom smells like detergent, hot metal, and wet towels. You did not ask Doris how much she made. That would have felt wrong. But you started watching, not in a strange way, in the way a trapped person watches a door. You noticed the place was never empty, not crowded, not exciting, not glamorous, but never empty. People came in with work uniforms, baby blankets, towels from small motels, garbage bags full of clothes from apartments with no machines. The laundromat did not need to be trendy. It did not need anyone to admire it. It solved one boring problem over and over again. And every time someone fed quarters into a machine, you saw something you had not seen before. A system, not a job. A system. That was the shift. Most people walk past cash flow every day because it is not dressed like opportunity. You had walked past it too, for years. Then one Thursday, while you folded white undershirts under fluorescent lights, Doris said something you never forgot. She said, "A job pays you because you showed up. A thing you own pays you because it still needs to exist." She was not giving a speech. She was not trying to change your life. She was just talking while cleaning the lint trap. But you heard it like a warning. A thing you own. That phrase followed you home. It sat beside you in traffic. It stood with you in the kitchen while you opened the refrigerator and looked at food you did not feel like cooking. It followed you into the office the next morning while your manager explained a new productivity target using a PowerPoint slide that looked exactly like last year's slide. a thing you own. You did not have money for a laundromat. You barely had money for a clean emergency. But the idea had already entered the room. And once you see ownership, employment starts to look different. Not bad, not shameful, just incomplete. A paycheck was one pipe. If that pipe closed, everything stopped. You did not need to become rich overnight. You needed a second pipe. The first one came from Mr. Bell. Mr. Bell was a maintenance contractor who serviced vending machines in warehouses, small offices, and 2 community colleges. You met him because the vending machine near the claims department kept stealing dollar bills. Everyone complained about it. Nobody cared enough to call, except you. You called the number on the sticker. 2 days later, Mr. Bell arrived in an old pickup truck with a toolbox and a paper cup of gas station coffee. He was thin, patient, the kind of man who had already learned not to rush machines. You watched him open the vending machine, rows of chips, coils, wires, coins, a tiny store hiding in a hallway. You asked one question, then another. Mr. Bell answered because older men with root businesses sometimes like being noticed by someone who is not trying to sell them software. He told you he was getting tired. His knees hurt. His son wanted nothing to do with the root. Most of the machines were too small for big operators and too annoying for people with regular jobs. That sentence stayed with you. Too small for big operators, too annoying for people with regular jobs. That was where opportunity lived. Not in the spotlight, in the inconvenience. 6 months later, you bought 3 machines from Mr. Bell. Not the good ones, not the college ones. 3 tired machines in boring places. A tire shop, a small warehouse, a community pool office that closed half the year. You used savings, a little credit, and a level of fear you did not admit to anyone. The first Saturday, you drove to a warehouse with boxes of chips sliding around your back seat. You wore jeans and an old hoodie. You had no idea what you were doing. The machine jammed. Your hand got scraped. You bought the wrong size candy. A warehouse supervisor asked if you were the new snack guy. You said yes, and somehow, saying yes made it real. The money was small, painfully small. After gas, inventory, repairs, and your own mistakes, there was almost nothing left. But the first time you saw a deposit that did not come from your employer, something changed in your body. It was not much, less than one nice dinner, but it did not come from a supervisor. It did not require a performance review. It did not depend on whether Frank from Claims thought you had leadership potential. It came from a machine in a hallway selling pretzels to people on break. That was the first dollar that felt different. Not bigger, different. You did not tell anyone. Not because it was impressive, because it was fragile. People are strange around small beginnings. When something is already successful, they respect it. When something is still awkward, they reach for jokes. You were not ready to let jokes touch it, so you kept quiet. At work, you were still Mason, reliable Mason, quiet Mason, the guy with the old Toyota. On weekends, you counted inventory in a storage closet and learned that chocolate melts faster than optimism. You learned which locations paid slowly. You learned which repairs you could do yourself. You learned that boring businesses are not passive. They are quiet, but they are not passive. There is always a jammed coil, a missing key. A text from someone named Rick saying the machine ate his $2. Freedom, you discovered, does not begin as free time. It begins as extra responsibility. That is the part most people never see. They see the online version of escape. A beach, a laptop, a drink with a lime in it. You saw invoices, mileage logs, a machine manual with grease on the corner. But the repetition changed you. Slowly. It made money less mysterious. It made ownership less holy. It made the system visible. A job was one kind of system. Ownership was another. And if you could survive the learning curve, one system could slowly buy you distance from the other. The vending machines did not make you rich, but they taught you the first rule of quiet freedom. You do not need one miracle. You need something that keeps working after your motivation disappears. 2 years passed. Nobody noticed. You paid down the credit card. You kept the Toyota. You packed lunch. You said no to trips you could not afford, but you stopped saying it with shame. A deposit would come in. Small, uneven, sometimes disappointing, but real. Then came the duplex. It was not beautiful. Peeling paint. Old refrigerator. A basement that smelled like wet cardboard. The listing photos looked like they had been taken by someone trying to escape the property. But the rent roll made you pause. 2 units, long-term tenants, not enough to brag about, enough to study. You read the numbers at your kitchen table 3 times. Your hands felt cold, not because the deal was perfect. It was not. Your hands felt cold because you could see the outline of a different life. You made mistakes. Of course you did. You underestimated repairs. You trusted a cheap contractor because his estimate made you feel safe. You learned that property manager emails can ruin breakfast. You learned that a water heater does not care about your calendar. One Friday night, while your coworkers were at a brewery downtown, you were standing in a hardware store comparing toilet fill valves under fluorescent lights. You remember thinking, this does not look like freedom. And it did not. Not yet. It looked like being tired in a new way. But every month, rent came in. Then bills went out. Then a little stayed. Not always, but often enough. Enough to make the second pipe real. The rat race did not break dramatically. It weakened quietly. 1 subscription canceled. 1 balance paid. 1 emergency fund rebuilt. 1 machine replaced. 1 tenant renewal signed. 1 ordinary month at a time. Years nobody saw. That is how most quiet wealth is built. Not in 1 heroic leap. In 1,000 private refusals. You refused to upgrade the car when people joked about it. You refused to move into the nicer apartment when your raise came. You refused to turn every stressful week into a purchase. Not because you were above wanting things. You wanted plenty. You wanted the leather jacket you stood in the store holding for 20 minutes. You wanted the vacation with the hotel balcony. You wanted the dinner where nobody checked the right side of the menu. But you wanted freedom more. Or maybe that sounds too clean. Maybe what you really wanted was relief. Relief from the feeling that 1 bad month could erase you. The old scarcity did not disappear. It only got quieter. Some mornings, you still checked your accounts like something might have vanished overnight. Some nights, you still felt guilty buying groceries that were not on sale. Getting free does not automatically teach your body that it is safe. Your nervous system does not read spreadsheets. It remembers kitchens. It remembers envelopes. It remembers silence. That is why the day you escaped did not feel like victory at first. It felt suspicious. It happened on that Tuesday. 6:17 a.m. cheap coffee, chipped mug, 3 deposits. You opened the spreadsheet you had been avoiding. Not the fantasy version, the real one. Rent, food, insurance, utilities, gas, basic life. No upgrades, no luxury, no pretending. Then you looked at the average cash flow from the machines, the duplex, the storage unit leases you had picked up through a small partnership with Mr. Bell's cousin, and the conservative number you trusted because it had disappointed you before and survived. The number was enough. Not mansion enough. Not private jet enough. Not tell everyone enough. Enough to make work optional. You stared at the screen. You expected joy. You expected music. You expected some new version of yourself to stand up inside your chest. Instead, you washed a glass that was already clean. That is what you did. You stood at the sink and washed a clean glass because your hands needed something to do. The money had arrived before the feeling did. At 7:42, you still drove to work. At 8:03, you still sat at your desk. At 8:17, your manager asked if you had finished the file review. You said yes, because you had. Nothing changed. And everything had. Around noon, Angela from accounting stood near the microwave and complained that payday was still 3 days away. Frank said his truck needed tires. Someone joked that they would be working until they died. Everyone laughed that tired laugh people use when a joke is too close to the truth. You almost laughed too, out of habit. Then you realized you did not have to. Not because you were better than them. You were not. You were them. You had been them for years, but something had shifted beneath the floor. The fear that used to sit behind every work conversation was no longer in charge. That afternoon, your boss asked if you could stay late on Friday. The old Mason began to answer before the new one could breathe. Sure, no problem. Then you stopped, just for 1 second. A tiny silence. Nobody else noticed it, but inside that silence was 10 years of your life. You said, "I can't this Friday." Your boss looked mildly annoyed, not angry, just inconvenienced. And for the first time, his disappointment did not feel like weather. It felt like information. That was when you understood. Escaping the rat race is not the moment you leave. It is the moment fear stops managing your mouth. You did not quit that day. You did not storm out. You kept working for a few more months. Quietly, carefully. You wanted health insurance figured out. You wanted more cash reserves. You wanted to know whether the feeling would hold. And every day, the office looked the same. The copier jammed. The coffee burned. Meetings started late. People said circle back and bandwidth and alignment like those words had not already been used to death. You answered emails. You reviewed files. You refilled vending machines after work. You called plumbers. You scanned receipts. You lived 2 lives, one visible, one real. Then one Thursday afternoon, you gave notice. No speech, no dramatic confession. Your manager asked where you were going. You said, "Taking some time." He nodded in the way people nod when they do not understand and do not want more information. Angela asked if you had another job lined up. You said, "Not exactly." She looked concerned. That was the strange thing. To her, you looked less secure. From the outside, leaving a job looked like risk. From the inside, staying forever had become the risk. On your last day, there was no cake. Frank forgot it was your last day until 3:20. Someone gave you a half-used box of desk supplies from the cabinet because they thought you might need them. You carried your things to the Toyota in one cardboard box, a mug, a phone charger, 2 notebooks, a picture frame with no picture in it because you had never gotten around to filling it. You sat in the parking lot for a while. The building looked the same, flat roof, tinted windows, tired shrubs. For years, that place had felt bigger than you. Now it just looked like a building. You expected grief or triumph. What came instead was space, a quiet space in your chest where panic used to live. You drove to the laundromat on Meridian and 5th. Doris was there, wiping down the folding counter. She looked older now. So did you, probably. You told her you left your job. She did not ask how. She did not ask why. She just nodded and said, "Good. Now don't waste the time you bought." That sentence stayed with you longer than any paycheck ever had. Because the danger after escape is thinking freedom is the finish line. It is not. Freedom is a room. You still have to decide what to do inside it. Some people escape the rat race and build a prettier cage. More spending, more comparison, more pressure. Different furniture, same fear. You understood how easily that could happen. The old hunger does not vanish just because the math improves. It looks for a new place to live. Status, control, validation, proof. But quiet wealth teaches a different lesson. The money was never supposed to make you loud. It was supposed to make you available. Available for a slow morning. Available for your own thoughts. Available for people you love before crisis forces your attention. Available for work you choose instead of work you fear. Months later, your life still did not look impressive. That confused people. You still lived in the same modest place. You still drove the Toyota. You still bought coffee beans on sale. At a family dinner, your cousin asked if you were looking for another job yet. Your aunt said the market was tough. Your mother looked worried, but tried not to show it. You could have explained everything. You could have opened the spreadsheet. You could have said duplex, vending route, storage units, reserves, cash flow. You could have made them understand. Maybe. But you remembered the kitchen table, the yellow light, the way money talk could turn into fear before anyone meant any harm. So you just said, "I'm okay." And for once, you meant it. That was enough. Nobody noticed the exact moment you became free. Nobody noticed because freedom did not change your clothes. It did not change your car. It did not change your voice. It changed the way silence felt. It changed the way Monday felt. It changed the way you looked at a bill, a boss, a delay, a repair, a choice. The world still called you ordinary. That was fine. Ordinary was a good disguise. On the first Tuesday after leaving, you woke up before the alarm, out of habit. The room was gray with early light. For a few seconds, your body searched for panic. The meeting, the commute, the unread emails, the thing you forgot. Then it found nothing urgent, just the refrigerator humming, a truck passing outside, coffee waiting to be made. You sat at the kitchen table with your phone face down. You did not check the bank account right away. That was new. You poured coffee into the chipped mug and watched steam rise. No announcement, no applause, no one texting. Congratulations, you made it. Just a quiet kitchen, a paid electric bill, a calendar with empty space on it. And somewhere across town, a vending machine dropped a bag of pretzels for someone on break. The money was never loud. That was the point.